Hey guys, welcome to this recording actually of Winning Wimbledon sort of live. We've got a very special guest today. His name is Lenny Schloss, who is the founder of Billie Jean King iCoach, teamed up with Billie Jean King. And as you guys know, she won 39 Grand Slams, and there's a reason they got together. And Lenny and Mark and I have been working together on a new project that is really exciting that we'll tell you about a little bit later. But Lenny, just want to welcome you to the show. And if you
Yeah.
would, tell people a little bit about kind of how this all started and really the study and what you found, because this is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I had a short 3-year tour on the pro tour in which I got a career-ending injury, and during that period of time, I was frustrated with the mishits side of the sport, and the more instruction I was getting, the more I felt frustrated because they just kept coming back in waves and waves and waves. So when the injury hit me, took another path and decided I would try to figure out what was wrong with me. And so the science began. But I was just looking at that court behind you. And I remember playing that court and remembering that I don't even remember anything. My mind was so blocked with whatever skills I had that it was more frightening than it was exhilarating. And so the long story of my journey was I went out of the pro tour, out of the tennis world into the science side and began to take journeys into different places that would talk about the brain. And I finally found in my backyard in Baltimore, the Wilmer Eye Institute is one of the leading eye brain institutes in the world. And what they study is brain functions and how we can access more of the brain, and that the power in the brain is so unlimited, but yet we use so little of it. And that's kind of how I felt. So then the friend of mine who was running it said, I think I can help you with your answers. And so it all triggered back to the impulses and the signals that the eye picks up are either good or bad. And if they're not good, you're going to miss it. And if they're really good, you're in this other world. And that set me on the path of, wow, so it wasn't me, it's the impulses. And so then the second part of the journey was about 9 months later. This is after 10 years of just really my hobby was trying to find what we're all going to be talking about, at Wimbledon is there was a science study about the human's athletic instincts and how we use them to hunt, and how we use them to catch, how we use them to throw, and how we use them to hit. Interesting that we use those three skills without any instruction, and that the signals were so powerful that we became expert strikers, expert throwers, and expert catchers. And as we evolved, as you know, as evolution evolved, these skills evolved with us. And that was his study showed that if we can access those signals, we can train our brain to go to levels that are unteachable, the Djokovic levels, the Federer levels. And of course, that got me because I thought I was good enough to get there, but I wasn't. And the signals in my brain would at times be unbelievable. And it could be one shot, two shots, or a match. And they could be unbelievably the other way. And now I realized that I was just blocking these signals and then they just couldn't get through. So if we could find a system and a way to unblock them, then what would that mean to all of us at every single level, where that good shot becomes not an accident, but a habit, where a mishit becomes a trigger to strengthen the signal. This all should sound familiar to all of us because we've all felt it at every single level. We have experienced greatness for a split second. And the good news and the bad news for everybody is there is a way now to access greatness, to access the correct thinking process during the point. This is the first study of its kind that we will be launching in the next very near future, that everyone can be trained to think during the point like a Grand Slam winner, to access those signals during the point like a Grand Slam winner, to be able to correct themselves during the point, on the next shot from a miss hit, the trigger becomes a solid hit, like the Grand Slam winners. And we note it was the winners. So in conclusion for this story, the study that we decided to go on was why in the world do we work so hard, strengthen these strokes, get so much instruction, do all of the things the coaches tell us, go to the gym, get our rackets ready, sleep well, hydrate well, and the strokes break down regardless within 2 to 3 shots? Why don't they last longer? Why is it that we tighten up? Why is it that our brain stresses out? What's that? Oh, I thought I said something. So the study was
study over said, Lenny? Can you give us an insight into the study?
Yeah, the study was to answer the questions. The Billie Jean King study is we decided to go on a mission and be able to now figure out what was happening during the point. And what basically found out is the signals are being blocked because we're overthinking. And if we reduce those thoughts, which we all know, and we know how to do it, there has to be a way to do it. Then your brain starts to calculate at extremely high levels. The ball slows down, and all of the instruction that's in your brain comes out, not by accident. So what we found is in the last 3 feet, there's a train wreck in your brain. And we found it. And so with Billie Jean's team, we've designed a neurological system to remove the distractions in the last 3 feet that are causing those mishits. And so by doing this, within hours of training at home, a player can now go to the court with a full arsenal of the skills that they've learned and be able to execute under pressure by training at home with these devices that we've now designed. It's called Billie Jean King's Sweet Spot Brain Training System. And so it simulates the last 3 feet. It strengthens the neurological signals in the last 3 feet. No coach can teach this. No player can find this. It's too fast, but it now can be slowed down and we can now trigger those impulses. So the study was a true game changer. So the fact that we're here on Wimbledon, the fact that we're talking all of this fancy talk simply means there is not hope, there is science. There is not, gee, maybe I can, maybe I can't. The science has proven that over 1,000 cases on slow motion film, within 30 minutes, the signal was restored. The balls began to hit cleanly. They began to move 2 to 3 steps faster. We have all the data. We then put another 15,000 players through tests and trials over the last 15 years to ensure that the system that would be developed, which would have Billie Jean King on the front end, better be ready. The only reason Billie Jean is a partner is because she studied the science and said, put me on this. This will change people's lives. We've got to get this going. We're already in school systems across the country now. We've already started to improve kids' ability to focus using these neurological trainers. And now we're going to go into the homes and do the same thing. So that's a long-winded story. I guess you guys need to break that down and make sure I didn't overspeak or underspeak.
No, Lenny, I think we might keep that just as it is, because I think for a lot of people that are playing matches and that are, competitive players that feel the pressure, that the same pressure that people playing at Wimbledon do at different levels, have all had the experience of being in a match and feeling like things were breaking down. They didn't know what to do, and their mind starts going in this whirlwind of neurotic and anxious thoughts, which lead to neurotic and anxious emotions. And if you've watching this right now and you understand that, then we now know that there is a way. And Lenny, what I'd like to do before we get into that is for you to talk about what was physically happening with these players and how did that influence what was happening mentally? Because I think that's important for people to understand.
Yeah. Physically, good questions, Ramon. Thanks. Physically, the film showed in the last 3 feet, 9 out of every 10 balls, their bodies were already off balance. There was already a negative impulse going into the brain. Pros could overcome it better. Even the pros, 9 out of 10 times, the signal got busted, but they are able to power through it and be able to hit a cleaner shot. 9 out of 10 times were off balance. 80% of the balls that were hit were mishits. They could still get them in the court, but they didn't hit in what everybody's called the sweet spot. That sweet spot is your perfection. It's the bullseye for every shot to go cross court, down the line with topspin, angles. If it lands in the sweet spot, you are going to be successful far greater than if it does not. 80% of the balls were mishit on the sweet spot, missing it. So with those two numbers, we realized there's where the signal is broken. We have to fix that. So that's the key figure that everybody can now count on. Those are pretty much the real science that everybody knows from the real world, that the points last 2 to 3 shots. But when 90% are off balance and 80% are not hitting it the solid, that means we're using maybe 20% of the instruction and the drills and the practice and the mental training and the tactical training. Maybe we're getting 20% out of ourselves. And that's everybody can, if they stop for a second, they realize, boy, I just hit how many great shots today. It probably won't be more than, it won't be the majority. And the fact shows that that's what it is. So this is what happens during the point. Is probably the single most important study that is going to hit the universe for the next 10 years. During the point is far greater to control than what happens between the point. We now have that ability to have everybody get that opportunity. And that's what Billie Jean King's study was all about. How do we get a stroke to last longer? How do we get kids to be able to learn faster and be able to self-correct themselves during the points? We just strengthen the signal. How do you do that? We'll be talking about that later, but hopefully that answered the question.
This is so powerful.
And so the difference between Grand Slam winners and everybody else, Lenny, is what?
Yeah. The difference is their ability to focus during the point correctly, to be able to use 3 signals that our brain requires that we use every day. They use them to perfection so that they screen out. They don't even know if a dog's running across the court. They don't even know 10,000 fans are yelling at them. Those signals are instincts. When they trigger those instincts and you hear the players say, yeah, man, I'm just going to get out there and trust my instincts and do my best and hope for the best and enjoy it. There's a science behind that. You didn't hear them say, yeah, I'm going to go out and work on my unit turn and then I'm going to make sure I think about my tactics, and then I'm going to make sure I think about my grip, or I'm going to make sure I think about where I'm going to hit the ball. No, those become distracting thoughts. So we now have all those. I had all of them. The more coaching I had, the more distractions I had to overcome. Now we know how to process this information. And the good news is it doesn't take months. It takes a few hours at home of re-drilling in a certain thought process, a certain neurological pathway, that as soon as you get to the court, you instantly feel like something happened. And all it is taking advantage of all the skills you have that were maybe 20% coming out. We can now triple and double it.
It's really amazing. And I think when you say people are off balance 90% of the time.
But this is not just about ball striking.
Oh, we got a little delay.
On,
sorry, Mark. I just jump in with one quick thing, because I think people might think, no, I'm pretty balanced. I think, when I hit the ball and I look at these pros, what do you mean they're off balance? They look pretty balanced to me. Can you explain a little bit about what that is and how that works, Lenny?
Yeah. What we watch is from the neck up. Any movement left and right triggers a movement below the neck, in which your body has to compensate for that fractional movement, because we are pretty much a perfect system of balance. We lose our balance, we can regain it. Any movement up top creates a adjusting movement down below. And when you make that adjustment in the last split second, sometimes you can make them just in time. and sometimes you can't. The balance happens when your head stays still through the contact. Those signals are the most powerful you can own. But when your eyes begin to move, your attention cannot focus at the point of contact because you're now moving. Of course you can't. So we have to instill a systematic way that you can trust and feel. That's what Billie Jean's whole neurological trainer does. It retrains your brain to stay still at contact, to be quiet, to trust, to be able to visualize, and do all the things that instinctively every child can do at the age of 5.
I'll tell
They
you
can all do these.
real quick, because we've been working together now for about a year now, Lenny, probably more than that. And I just now had a gentleman friend I hadn't seen in a long time show up on the tennis court. This man is probably in his early 70s. And he's like, I'm working on my backhand. And gosh, I took this lesson, and it's a very good coach. And he says, well, you're not turning enough, and you're not doing this, and you're not doing that. And I showed him a lot of the things that we've talked about today. And he was just like, this makes so much sense, because the repetition that we're putting in is what's becoming permanent. And so if we're off balance 90% of the time, if our eyes are shifting, we're losing focus over the point of contact 90% of the time. Well, it's no wonder that when we, by the way, we've gotten pretty good at hitting blind, so to speak. We've figured out how to do that to a reasonable level. But how cool would it be if you weren't hitting blind? You could turn the light bulb on into the dark room and say, gosh, I finally have stopped all of that overthinking. And now I'm starting to practice in a way that I'm instilling good habits, so that when I get into the match, that's going to be what comes out more often. And he was blown away. Obviously it was a 5-minute lesson because I had to run up here to be with you guys, but his eyes lit up because he finally understood why he was struggling so much and why things would work 1 second and break down the next. So it's really exciting. Mark, you have any questions for Lenny you'd like to ask before we wrap up?
Oh, I got one question for Lenny. So far, we've really been talking about ball striking, but there are other skills and characteristics that separate Grand Slam winners from the rest, which has also come out of the study and is in the training. Can you spend a few minutes on the other skills apart from ball striking?
Well, I think that opens up a wide door, but for the market that for our consumers, our players, I just have to go back to me, because I feel like I am no different, even though I achieved higher levels. The mental game. What is the mental game? The mental game was finally explained to me at the Wilmer Eye Institute is what you think during the action controls the action itself. The mental game that a Grand Slam winner thinks intuitively, instinctively, is that catching instinct. That catching instinct allows his eye to track a ball up to 150, 200 miles an hour. If they're instinctively tracking it, they'll be able to get to it. But if anything breaks that instinct, the mental game is what I'm talking about, what to think during the point, they are just like us, no different. You'll see them lose their balance. You'll see a miss hit. You'll see them get aced. Those are all signals now that you can start to watch for in the mental game that now can be trained during the point. What else does a Grand Slam winner do that's so amazing? Not much. They're fit as other people. They have rackets like the rest of us. They have a coach that tells them where to hit and the tactics and, for their different players. But what they do different, the Grand Slam winners, is mental. During the point, their ability to scan a ball, track it, and then focus at the very last second at the contact is phenomenal. And when and they practice that, you watch them practice, you will see that the hits are so clean. Their balance is so strong. Their heads are so still. Those are being stored in their brain like an army of rangers ready to attack somebody that comes in. Those are feelings that they have about strokes that they have mastered under pressure. The more the pressure, the greater, the faster they see the ball, track it, and focus. The opposite was for me. The greater the pressure, the more I thought about the score, the more I thought about my footwork, the more I thought about my follow through, the more I thought about technique, the more I thought about tactics. And there was a story that Jimmy Connors will tell back in the day when he took time off to go see a coach, which I won't mention. And he said, Jimmy, for you to go to the next level, we've got to work on your tactical game. And they worked for 3 months on when to go cross court, when to go down the line, how to do it, and this guy was a great tactical mind. Jimmy lost in the first round. His instincts were taken away. The scanning, the tracking, and the focusing no longer allowed him to be the great athlete he could be. This resonates with all of us. Where I had wins and I had losses, I took my own instincts away. Now with Billie Jean King, we can now, as she tied into it, she said, that is why I won 39 Grand Slams, but I never knew it. I just knew to keep my eye on my side of the ball the entire match. I would scan it, track it, and focus it from my side of the ball. I never knew the other side of the ball. Those are the signals that we can now develop in an athlete. You never see the other side of the ball. You never see the opponent. You do see your side of the ball. You do get all the information in, and your tactics and your skills become peripheral. They become instinctive. They're not being taught. We have a player that we are helping right now that we are not allowed to mention in Wimbledon today. And that mission will be simply that, to be able to stay in the moment, in the present, during the point, so those signals fire. And when they're falling down or whatever shot, it really doesn't matter. Your brain can do anything, falling down or not. And let me just make one more note for everyone. If you have been told that you missed the shot because your footwork, that is not true. If you were told that you missed the shot because you did not follow through, your technique broke down, that may not also be the cause. The root cause, I can hit a ball falling down, and you will see the great players doing all of this. They're falling down, making crazy shots. How is that possible? You'll see their strokes not absolutely in a perfect technique form, making unbelievable shots. The key secret is where the ball lands on their strings. That is about a 2-second interval for the entire match. They get the ball to land on their strings where they're falling in the middle, whether they're falling down, whether their footwork is, if the footwork is off, it just means you can't hit it as hard. If you're falling down, it means you just can't place it as well. But never can you now say with this sweet spot training that the Grand Slam winners, that doesn't bother them. They're scanning and tracking. That signal doesn't get busted because they're under pressure. It gets stronger. So that's the mental part of the game, Mark, and trying to answer that is, what else do they do? Physically, they train like crazy. They watch their diets. They get their sleep. They hydrate. But the winners, during the point, they don't even know who they're playing. They are engaged with the ball. Those signals are so strong. They're like hunters 1,000 years ago. I've got to get to it. I got to hit it. And I got to get to the next one, and I got to hit it. And their brain just goes into that mode, same as golfers do, same as soccer players do. So we now have cracked the code. With the root cause of these problems is mental, not physical, mental.
Well, this is really fascinating. And I know if you're watching this right now and you've got questions for Lenny, this is a recorded show. So go ahead and put them down in the comments. And if we don't get to them on whatever platform you're watching this, Lenny is going to be back with us in a few days to go through some more of this and really talk about how we can apply these principles so that we can start going out there hitting cleaner balls with less stress in our brain, less overthinking, and to really play the way that we all secretly want and know that we're capable of playing. So, Lenny, got something to add?
Yeah, just one closing comment. We all have great coaches. This has nothing to do with coaching being wrong or right. when we do these brain trainings, drills, and we give you the drills to do, when you go back to your coaches, you start learning faster. You start correcting yourself faster. The signals are stronger. You get to learn more from them faster. So it's for the game of tennis that this information, these sweet spot drills are going to be released out, and the training that we're going to be doing to be able to help one stroke at a time. We will talk about it, but we do one stroke at a time. And then when you go back to your coaches, you're like on another level for learning. So it's everybody wins when we get this information out. It's really, that's why Billie Jean's name is on it. It's Billie Jean King Sweet Spot Brain Training. It's Billie Jean King's training system for I think guys, we came up with is hit like a Grand Slam winner during the point. So here we go.
Awesome. Well, Lenny, Mark, thank you guys as always. I feel very fortunate to get to do these with you. And if you guys have any questions, you're watching this live or you're watching this on a replay, please put them down in the comments and we will be sure to answer them on the next live show with Lenny, with Mark. And my name is Ramon. It's a pleasure being with you today, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks.